Hey, Ray, you ever wonder how Colin Cosell got the job being the PA announcer for the Mets?
You know, I totally was just wondering about that just now. I wonder how we could find that out.
Well, I suppose we could ask him. As it turns out, he's here now.
Now entering the podcast, the public address announcer for the New York Mets, me, Colin Cosell. It's me. I'm here.
Yeah.
Hey, this is my friend, Ray.
What's up? This is my friend A.D.
Ray is a tour manager who's traveled the world with everyone from the Beastie Boys to the Rolling Stones, engineered artists from Devo to Jane's Addiction to Selena Gomez, and looked after the careers of comics like Jim Gaffigan and Dane Cook.
And A.D. is a national radio personality, heard on stations across the country, who started off as a major label recording artist that gave me my first job as a tour manager.
I still can't believe that ended well.
Well, we still talk all the time now, and when we do, it's about music and cooking and baseball, especially our beloved New York Mets.
This is bands, barbecue, and baseball. Actually, you know what? Each one of you guys give me a quick line check.
Check. Colin Cosell, over. I'm so sorry. I'm an asshole.
No. Please, you first.
No, that's my usual mic check. Check. This is Colin. So sorry, I'm an asshole.
Well, looks like we got the levels. Colin Cosell, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm a big fan of both of your works. Your breadth of work is pretty amazing, so I feel like I don't belong in the room. So thanks for making me feel cool.
Well, the feeling is undoubtedly mutual. So we have all manner of questions for you, but I think my first question would probably be, how did you get the gig as the Mets PA announcer? Like, how does that happen for an individual?
Well, I think, anyone in the industry will tell you a lot of this is not what you know, it's who you know. And networking is paramount to success unless, you're a prodigy like a Bob Costas or a Howard Cosell, who knows? Mm-hmm. But, in my case, literally, I was bartending and a gentleman came in. I was a bar manager in the East Village in the city. And a gentleman came in and we hit it off. He had just started working for the Mets, working in the in-game production and entertainment. Actually was the executive producer. And we maintained a friendship. He knew about my background in radio and TV and as an announcer. And he said, yeah, if anything ever comes up, I'll let you know. But aside from that, we were just friends. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to Sunday, April 15th, 2018, Mets versus Brewers, 4:00 game. Went with my wife. We were newlyweds at the time. Her maid of honor and her maid of honor's boyfriend at the time was from Milwaukee. So it was fitting that we'd go to this game. And so I sent a text to my friend and I said, hey, I'm at the game. He's like, that's amazing. Would love to see you, show you around. And this was perfect, too, because the day before was like 85 degrees, sunny and gorgeous, completely out of left field, baseball pun intended, weather for April. And then the very next day, it was 42 degrees and like misting. It was horrible. So I'm like, yeah, no, get me out of this mess immediately. And so he showed me around. I saw, the whole production space. And he's like, listen, they're looking for a new PA announcer. I can't do much except get your demo in the right hands. So if you can get that to me by tomorrow, that'd be great. I was like, that's perfect, except I am working 3 doubles in a row. I might be able to squeeze it in during a lunch break on Wednesday. I was like, is Wednesday too late? He's like, no, that'll be fine. So literally in the middle of a lunch break, in an Italian restaurant that I was a manager at, I recorded my demo. Meanwhile, there was like this raucous Italian birthday party going on in a room next door. So I'm like trying to record in between all of their
Wait, hold on. Did you do this on your phone at a restaurant? Like this is what
I did this on my computer.
This is an amazing story, and I love stories like this one. But so you did this in the back room at an Italian restaurant while there was a party going on. You recorded your audition to be the New York Mets PA announcer.
Yeah, I literally brought my old rickety
so awesome
laptop and a good microphone. For you audiophiles out there, it was an Audio-Technica 2020 USB. Perfectly good microphone. And I started recording, and then all of a sudden it sounded like a herd of elephants were coming down the stairs because our office, the managerial office, was like underneath the stairs next to this party room. And everyone neglected to tell me that this party was going to be going on. So I managed to get like the introduction, and then like in between, I guess whenever someone was giving a toast, I was able to like squeeze in a quick recording, and then everyone was like, "Aye, you know," and it was like,
I love this. This is so punk rock. This is, and there's a reason I bring it up because, you know, look, your grandfather is a legendary sports broadcaster, but you know what? My family invented the Kit Kat bar. I never got a free piece of chocolate in my freaking life. And I was like, I bet a lot of people assume that, you know, he sort of walked into this situation. I was like, I guarantee you he didn't, because that just doesn't happen. I knew there was like, I knew there had to be some outside the box hustle and grind. I just didn't know that you recorded your audition in an Italian restaurant. Like, that's amazing. That's one of the best stories I've ever heard.
Well, it gets even better because I was just so annoyed by everything going on around me. I'm like, you know, there's nothing I can do. And then I had to get back to work, and I was like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to figure out which one of these takes is the best. I sent it off and was just resigned to my fate of never being a PA announcer. And I was like, ugh, that sucks. And then there was like 2 weeks of radio silence, and I'm like, well, I guess that's that. And then I got a random email being like, hey, we've narrowed it down, and you know, you're still in the hunt for this job, and you know, we'll be in touch. And then a week later, you know, hey, we're trying to get everyone together to, you know, listen to these, and getting everyone together is like wrangling cats, but you've made it to the next round. And what would your availability be to come into Citi Field and actually do a live audition should you make it to the next round, and so on. And then a month to the day later, May 15th, I went into Citi Field. It was empty, and 7 of us it was whittled down to. And they had me go into the PA booth and do a read with a copy that I just received when I got there. And that was the first time I've ever heard my voice through a major league ballpark. So that was
there's not too many of us that have. That's insane. Like,
yeah, it was pretty wild. And then I was like, well, I went into that audition so calm, cool, and collected because it had been a month, and I'm like, well, you know what? It's out of my hands. And then I was more nervous when I left the ballpark because I'm like, wow, I actually have a shot now. And to make things even crazier, I went back home, had to get changed to go back to that Italian restaurant. But first, I had to swing by a wake. One of our beloved customers had passed away the week before.
I'm not laughing because that's funny. It's just like the circumstances. It's insane.
You're
so
gonna laugh.
Random. Oh, okay, good.
You're gonna laugh because as I'm trying to find my way to this funeral home in Rego Park in Queens, my friend calls up, who then became my boss. He's like, hey, you got a minute? I'm like, yeah, just trying to find a parking spot for a funeral. What's going on? He's like, okay, so we narrowed it down to 2 people, and you're one of them. And I was like, okay. And I said, what's next? And he said, they want to go with 2 PA announcers. And I said, so I got the job. He goes, congratulations, you're the new PA announcer for the New York Mets. I wept. I just burst into tears. I'm like, I'm so sorry, man. I'm trying to maintain my composure. And he was just like, dude, I get it. Don't worry. This is life-changing. Like, you got it. You're good. And I was like, okay, thank you. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So we get off the phone. Now, I'm going nuts. And I'm like, I can't call my family right now. I'm like, this is the perfect time to go into this wake. So I walk into this wake, and everyone thinks I am really shaken by the loss of our friend Joe. Like, they're like, so Colin, you okay? I'm like,
you're already crying as you walk into the wake, and you played it off like it was because the guy died?
Because I wasn't going to come in and be like, no, guys, I just got a job for a lifetime. You know, I was just like, oh, Joe is. I did owe the guy a debt of gratitude. He did hook up who ended up catering my wife and my wedding. So I did owe him, you know, that. And I really did enjoy the guy. But I wasn't, you know, to the point of like, my eyes were bloodshot and swollen because I was just weeping in my car, tears of sheer joy. So everyone was just like, oh, that is so sweet, Colin. We appreciate that. And I immediately got out of there, got in my car. I called my wife and I was like, honey. She goes, yeah. I said, I got the job. And then, you know, and it was nuts. And then I met up with my then friend to boss for a beer shortly after I got the job. And he goes, I want you to know something. He goes, that was a completely blind audition. You were just a number. No one knew your name. You got this job on your own merits. You did not get it because you were Cosell's grandson. I want you to know that. And that was
a really kind thing of him to do. That's awesome.
It really was.
Now I hope Marisol's same story is, they called me up and I had nothing better to do, so I figured, why not? I'll just do it. And
well, see, here's the thing. Marisol she's become one of my best friends. She is the older sister I never wanted. She calls me the little brother she never wanted. We love each other dearly. We hit it off from day one. She's a total badass. Like she can conquer whatever she sets her mind to. So for me, this is a dream come true. Like I want to Bob Shepard this until I'm like 80 and can't think or speak anymore. She can just she's amazing at everything she does. So she probably was just like, cool.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned Bob Shepard because he's obviously, the gold standard in terms of PA announcers' longevity and being able to do it consistently and for a long period of time. Growing up a Mets fan, literally just blocks away from Shea. I remember back into the '70s of Lauren Matthews and Jack Franchetti and obviously through Alex Anthony's time period and everything. So the position itself is. It's a gold standard in terms of doing that. But my memories and always of going to the ballpark literally exist from that voice echoing through the ballpark. So your voice echoing through the ballpark, as you described, it becomes an iconic thing. The one thing about the way that the game has become now in terms of at the stadium, everything is an in-game kind of participation thing. There's so many things going on in between innings and raffles and promos and everything. I believe it's probably way more involved now than it maybe necessarily had been just back in the day of Bob Shepard going Jita #2 Jita. How much more?
Hold on, Ray, do that again.
Jita #2. Very good. I'd imagine that the job is a lot more involved and entailed now of all the in marketing and in game stuff.
Yeah, no one was ever telling people in the past to hashtag certain things on Instagram for a chance to win something. Like that's it's become an infinitely more involved gig in the digital age. We would both imagine.
Hashtag 100%. Hashtag #2.
Can you imagine Bob Shepard doing a hashtag? Like, hashtag show Yankees pride. Hashtag go Yankees go. Like, you can't imagine him saying it because, like, he's from that era. Probably for him, he'd be like, # go Yankees. Like,
hash brown backsplash.
Jita.
Now I'm hungry. Now I'm hungry and want to watch HGTV. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Jita out at the plate. We do not less than 3 that.
No, it is. It's far more involved than it was back in the day, and it's because there's ad reads, there's tosses, and we're constantly trying to get a feel for having that interaction between us and the in-game hosts, because in Alex's time, and Alex has become a dear friend of mine as well, with no awkwardness at all. He's a consummate professional and has been just a great friend. But he used to have to do everything himself before they brought in the in-game hosts, and to a certain degree, that included spotting for himself to see if there was a pinch hitter, pinch runner, what have you, who was in the bullpen warming up, because all of those things were either going to be announced or put up on CityVision or on the Jumbotron at Shea. So
I heard he was a crazy organ player that used to kick Jane Jarvis off to the side and said, "I'll play the organ. Let me fill in on the organ for a little while."
I can't speak to that. I will not do that. I will not. I was not around. I was merely a fan in the stands listening to the dulcet tones of one Alex Anthony. But no, it's, it was funny because when I started, I'd done some PA work. I did some for an ultimate Frisbee team, the AUDL, the American.
I love
Ultimate
this.
Disc
Everybody
League.
has to start somewhere. Like, I was PAing ultimate Frisbee competitions, and I recorded my audition in the back room of an Italian restaurant where I was waiting table. Go on. It's just the story gets better and better. This is so cool.
Well, the funny thing about the AUDL job with the New York Empire was I was managing and bartending at this place in the East Village. This obviously predates the Italian restaurant in Queens. And on Thursday nights, I would run trivia night. And there was a company that would supply all the questions and stuff and prizes and so on. And one of the guys that owned the company came in to, see what I was doing because, we had the house packed and I have a background in stand-up comedy. So I was, this was my opportunity to just have fun with the crowd, have a blast, run trivia night and so on. And he loved the way I did it so much because I would introduce all of the staff each night, and I would do it playing Sirius by Alan Parsons Project, like the Chicago Bulls, and who was bartending, who was waiting, who was bussing, and he loved it so much. He's like, "Listen, we need a PA announcer for a team that I've got a small stake in." The New York Empire and the AUDL. Would you be interested? And I was like, dude, if it's a microphone and a paycheck, of course. And so that was like my first professional PA gig. I ended up having to leave them because I got, jobs with the New York Riptide in National Lacrosse League and, of course, the Mets with MLB. And, of course, the next year they went off and won the championship in the AUDL. So that I missed out on that. But literally all of my PA gigs came from working in a bar in the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
So this is the thing. Ray used to tour manage me when I was a kid in a band. And at the end of that, Seagram's bought Polygram and I had no record label anymore. I remember we had Triumph and, hey, you just cracked the top 20. But there's no label. You got to bring the bus back. It was fun. And so I scrambled to try and get jobs and try and figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I used to be I started DJing live, anywhere you could play music, I would set up. It could be weddings and bar mitzvahs on Long Island. It could be clubs and lounges in Manhattan. But one of my regular gigs, and anybody that's from New York knows this, used to be the Caliente Cab Company Mexican restaurant. I used to DJ that. Have you guys been? Right across the street from NYU downtown, off of St. Mark's.
Oh yeah. No.
So, where is that?
There's two. There was one. There were two locations that I used to work at, but it was just a Mexican. Yeah, in the Village. There was one in the Village, and there was one right by across the street from NYU. But it's so funny you should say that, and it resonates with me because I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. All my other friends were graduating from college. I'm 23 years old. They've all got cars and jobs and prospects, and my resume says singer in a band, and I don't even have a band anymore. And and I'm DJing at the Caliente Cab Company, announcing Thirsty Thursday or Margarita Monday or something like that. And someone was like, "You got a great voice. You should be on the radio." I was like, "You think? Really?" And one of my buddies was at K-Rock at the time. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you." I don't know if you remember, there's a guy called Will Pendarvis that used to be.
Of course, I know Will Pendarvis, Sluggo, the whole K-Rock lineup.
Yeah, so Will was like, "I'll show you how to make a demo that sounds just like me," and he helped me. He gave my demo to Sirius XM and got me my first job on the radio, helping me fake up an air check that made me sound like him. But it's so funny how that getting in, talking into a microphone at a bar. I feel there's you, there's me, there's probably a lot of these stories.
Yeah, I mean, I listen, and I'm terribly jealous of you. Radio is my first passion. I got my first gig when I was 19 years old in an oldies station on Long Island, WLNG 92.1 FM, the home of 10,000 golden oldies. And I was 19 years old playing songs I had never heard in my life. And I was on 6 nights a week from midnight to 5:30. I was supposed to be an intern. The overnight guy had fallen ill. They're like, the guy who ran the station, Paul Sidney, had promised me a job when I was 5 years old. They were doing a live remote at Bite-A-Wee Pet Shelter, and they were doing a little dog show for charity.
Not sure.
My grandfather was a guest vet and a guest judge rather, and he was definitely not a veterinarian. That would have been a disaster. And Paul Sidney, I was like, can I come on the air? And he was just like, yeah, of course you can. And the guy was irreverent. He was unintelligible on air, but he was a legend. And he promised me when I was 5 years old, he would give me my first job in radio, and he did. And so I'm terribly jealous of that. And when we're off air, I'd love to get some pointers on how to do a proper demo and proper air check, because the one I've got makes me sound like Casey Kasem.
As the Garrison Keillor of rock, I would love to help. But I want to go back, sorry, we're skipping around a little bit, but I want to go back to when you actually did that audition, because like you said you didn't get nervous until after it was over. But when you did that audition, when there was like 7 other people that they were trying out for the gig, do you remember what order you went in? Because did you, like, if you go first or go last, I think that's an advantageous situation. But when you're sort of flung somewhere in the middle and you hear like 3 people go in front of you, that's when, like, for me, that's when crushing self-doubt would sink in. I'd be like, what am I doing here? I'm a complete phony. All these people are so much better. Like, what point in the lineup were you auditioning?
It's funny. I had no idea at the time. We were all spaced out so that no one would see each other.
Oh,
yeah. So we
I was
were
sensitive
all
about
separate.
That's nice.
We didn't hear each other. We didn't see each other. We didn't know the other person was there. It wasn't until after the fact that I found out that A, I found out what number I was, and B, I found out that I nearly didn't get the job because of someone writing down the wrong number. So the Mets brass were scattered throughout the ballpark to listen blindly, and I was number 3. Marisol was number 5, and everyone, they were asked to write down their 2 favorites, and then they were going to narrow it down. And it might have actually been Jeff Wilpon himself who accidentally wrote down 4 and 5.
Nice.
And they were like, they were going over it. I won't speak to that either. Apparently they were going over
same way
everything.
He used to write the wrong number down on checks.
I mean, listen, my paycheck was always fine, and I bear no ill will, and but they were going through it, and it's just like, number 4, that was that guy. They're like, no, number 4 is a female. 4 and 5 are female. And he's like, oh, then it must have been number 3. They're like, yeah, you must have been 3, and they're like, well, we like both of them, so we'll keep them all. So I nearly didn't get the job because of the wrong number being written down.
That's amazing. So,
wow.
We were talking about, we're like, oh my gosh, we're going to get to talk to Colin Cosell. Like, as nerdy fanboys, as people that I think, I don't know about you, Ray, but for me, BC Boys, Seinfeld, and the Mets are the closest things I've got to a real religion. And we talk about this all the time, about being a fan and how working around it makes it's just difficult to maintain that same sense of wonder. Are you like a real, it sounds like you're a Mets fan, like you are really a fan.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I grew up in a kind of a unique situation, given my grandfather and his position. I'm the only one in my family who is New York through and through when it comes to sports. And there was a lot of ambivalence with every sport, with the exception of hockey. It was, for me, it was the New York Rangers or bust. The Islanders and Devils could get in a fiery plane crash with each other, and I'd be like, that's just with shame. But you know, for me, the first championship I experienced as a New York sports fan was the 1986 Mets. But at the same time, my grandfather was dear friends with Fred Wilpon and was dear friends with George Steinbrenner. And so, you know, it was kind of, that ambivalence. It was just like, as long as New York's doing well. And then after the 2000 Subway Series, I was just like, oh, wait a minute. Yankees fans are, they're kind of jerks. Like, this is like, what are you doing? Yeah. And, you know, and it was the same thing with football. Like, I leaned Jets, but I was like, yeah, no, I have no problem rooting for the Giants. And I'll tell you what, my 2 favorite Super Bowls were the Giants beating the Patriots. Like, I've never been a bigger Giants fan. But then I also realized that Giants fans were kind of picking on Jets fans the same way. And I'm like, that's unnecessary. Like, we share a house. Like, nobody needs that. But then, you know, it made it a lot easier to drop that ambivalence. You know, by 2015, when the Mets were, when they're playing against the Kansas City Royals in the World Series, and it was just like that kind of electricity, and it's just like, take that, Yankees. And then you get hired by a team, and it's like, I don't care that there's any other baseball team in New York State, let alone the tri-state area or across the country. It is Mets or bust. So I've always rooted for the Mets, but I've never been as much of a historian and diehard fan as I am now, because, you know, this I live, eat, and breathe this team 365. You know, I'm keeping tabs on everything with them.
So Ray has an amazing story story where like his whole reason for everything is, and we've talked about this in the past, if Ray were to unbuckle and pull down his pants right now, on his ass you would see tattooed a Devo barcode. For which album, Ray?
Oh, the second album, Duty Now for the Future.
Right. So
1979.
Like Devo are his reason for everything. I knew this when I met him. And then when he was tour managing my band and we were like looking at video treatments for our single, we get one from Jerry Cosell from Devo, who was directing videos at the time. He did an amazing video for Soundgarden. He did an amazing video for Silverchair. He was like a hot video director. And so
I remember him.
And so Ray, meets Jerry Cosell on the set of our video shoot. And you've been, go on, Ray, you've been working for him ever since. Like, tell the story, because I have a question for both of you after all this.
Well, I mean, it basically literally starts from childhood allegiance. And my childhood allegiances were literally Devo were the first band I was ever exposed to when I was a child. And my first baseball game was 75 at Chase Stadium, where one of my neighbors was friends with the ownership of the team. So my first game wasn't my father bringing me to a game. It was my next door neighbor. And we sat in the first seats right next to the Mets dugout at Shea. I met every one of the players, got signatures from everyone. And midway through the game, this is in 1975, sitting in the first seat right next to there, because it wasn't like it is now where the seats are that far apart. I literally saw Tom Seaver and waved at him, and he came over and shook my hand before running out onto the field. So, I mean,
wow.
of the things that I've been hooked on and into since I was a little kid, I've just maneuvered my way into being incredibly close to and into. So as Adrian was saying, Devo was my main thing since I'm 8 years old, and I literally forced my way into them. I when I was tour managing Adrian's band, we happened to be out in LA, and Devo Studios are right there on Sunset Boulevard, and on a day off, I literally broke my way into Devo Studios and said hi to the guys. I'd met them when I was a little kid at my first Devo show in 1981. And they said, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, I'm tour managing this band on A&M Records." "Oh, and Jerry, they're about to do their first video. You should really direct their video." And I forced a CD in his hand. And literally a week later, Adrian and the rest of the band and I were now in Atlanta because we were on tour at the time. And they got called into a meeting at A&M Records studio headquarters. And it was my job as tour manager just to get them to the meeting. So I'm sitting on a table, literally in this big conference room, and they're on a conference call with Jerry from Devo on a little speakerphone, and the head of A&M Records and the band. And the A&M Records guy asked Jerry Cosell. He said, "Well, Jerry, how did you even hear of this band?" And he says, "Well, their tour manager Ray Miko commando raided his way into my studio in LA and forced a CD in my hand and said I had to do this." So the story is over and over again of how to force your way, one, into a situation that you want to be in, or two, giving yourself the opportunity to be in that situation, whether you're going to get turned down or not, is something that's always fascinated me. So your story of how you got into it, or how you were placed there, it runs completely parallel to being thrown into the fire and saying, I'm going to do this. This is what I'm going to do.
So you've been, you started off this enormous Devo fan, and then, you meet them, you essentially get Jerry Cosell a job, not the best job he's ever done, but a job nevertheless. And you've built a relationship with them. You go on to run sound for them, be their tour manager, you marry their secretary.
Yes.
Like
What?
Your whole life. Yeah.
Yes.
Like your whole life is Devo. And
yes.
you have seen how the Devo sausage is made. You've been behind the scenes. You know everything. You know all of it. Has that made your relationship with Devo any less special?
Yeah, only in the terms of, I mean, when anyone has ever said the worst thing impossible is meeting your idols, or meeting your heroes, there's an element to that in the fact that the facade is broken, that fourth wall is broken. But it really matters to how pragmatic or reality based I think you can be. I've had friends in the music industry as I've been, who are big baseball fans who went on to say, you know what, I'm not going to work in the music industry more. I'm going to follow my passion, and I'm going to go work in baseball. And
didn't Scotty Shanks, who we both toured with at one point, doesn't he work for the Cardinals now?
Scotty Halter went and worked as a road manager for the Double-A team from the Cardinals. So literally their road manager, which is what he did with Smash Mouth. Being the road manager, and in the minor leagues. And the minor leagues is in equal comparison to any band that's ever done a van and trailer, running around the country from club to club playing. It's the same thing as being on a single A or double-A ball team, in terms of before you make it to the show. So there's a lot of equivalences to it. And he's even told me, like the facade being broken down of finally like, I'm going to work in baseball. And now actually working in baseball. And, there's the dirty sides to it. There's the rigor of the whole thing, that it's not, the grass is definitely greener on the field than it is, probably, anywhere else. As the old saying goes, the grass is always greener. So I would make the comparison to the fact that if you're pragmatic and realistic about what the real world and real life is, the situations can be looked at as not being, oh my God, I can't believe I've now seen that my heroes have the same foibles and problems as anybody else does. The reality of the situations.
Because it's and the reason I ask is like, I love music. Music is obviously everything. It's, eat, sleep, and breathe it. It's become my career. But the moment it became my quote unquote career, like I caught myself, the radio's in an interesting place where a lot of us are doing a lot of jobs, especially since COVID, especially since all of the above. So the level of responsibility and the workload it's pretty hefty these days. And I remember catching myself in the middle of trying to program a station, be on the air on like 5 of other stations at the time a few years ago, where someone was like, hey, Chino from Deftones is going to be calling in a little bit. And I was like, I don't have time for this today. Then I was like, 15-year-old me would have kicked adult me directly in the junk for saying that. Get it together. Get your head in the game. This is why you wanted to do this. And it's so funny because when I was in San Diego, Josh Lewin, who was part of the Mets broadcast team, was there at the time. And he was on my station because he worked for the Chargers, who we were carrying too. And people like, do you want to meet him? I was like, kind of, sort of, not really. I was like, I love, yes, I do. But I was like, baseball is the one thing where it's magical and mystical to me. Like, I don't, I want the best seats I can get. I want to be up close and personal, but I don't ever want to get in a position where I'm like, texting with someone on the team, or like, I don't want the wall to come down. I need that in my life. And so like Colin, asking you, your level of fandom since you got the gig, being behind the scenes, seeing how the sausage is made, I thought maybe it would diminish your passion for it, but it sounds like it's shot it through the roof.
Oh yeah. I mean, listen, hockey is my number one sport. It was the sport I gravitated to the most as a child. I played for 14 years as a goalie, if you couldn't tell by the insanity that I've spewed already in these few minutes we've been talking to each other. But, baseball and football were kind of tied for a close second. And, obviously still love my hockey, but I live, eat, and breathe baseball, on a whole other level now. Because I want to know who's in the pipeline. I want to know what names I might be calling. And I want to, I try to establish a certain relationship just outside of being a voice in a stadium with the fans. Mm-hmm. And so that takes it to a whole other level, because I'm a people person. I'm very social, and I always have my booth window open, and I'm always talking with fans. If there's little kids there, I'll give them, like a little keepsake, my lineups that I wrote out from the game or what have you. Because
that's
it's like a
so
fun little
cool
thing.
that you do that, because like that kid's gonna take that with them forever. It's like the Mets guy gave me a piece of paper that he used to write stuff down on during the game. I have a piece of it. Like it's so cool that you do that and that you recognize the value of that to other people. It's awesome.
Because it's something that always meant the world to me. You know, when I was a kid and I'd go to a game with my grandfather and would get some, piece of memorabilia, maybe a broken stick or a game used puck or something like that. Or even, something from the game rundown from the broadcast crew. Like that stuff was super intriguing to me and exciting to me. And it is something that's very unique to that specific game that you can't really get outside. Like, listen, there's a million foul balls. There's a bunch of home runs. A lot of people come away with the ball. Although I did not my entire life. I did not get in baseball until last season when there's no fans in the stands. And there was this one game where like everyone was rocketing foul balls like back towards our booth. And I'm praying. I've got my like little giveaway glove. It's like a kid-sized glove. And I'm just ready for a ball to come through the window, and I'm going to catch it. And that's literally the first time I got a ball. But it's something that's so unique. And if a kid's interested in it, and their eyes light up, then I'm all about it. Sometimes I'll be reading the game totals at the end of the game. And, some people are still standing around, and I could catch out of the corner of my eye, like they're turning around and they could see me and I see them point. And so like, I'll continue reading and just kind of like give them a nod, and they're like, that's so cool. And I'm like, no, this is so cool for me. So yeah, my baseball fandom and my fandom with the Mets is gone through the roof. And, all of my hockey friends are kind of surprised by it, but they get it, it makes total sense.
And it, like, as a Mets fan, look, one of the coolest things, Ray and I talk about it all the time. One of the coolest things about, Uncle Stevie becoming our owner, besides the fact that, finally he can, we're in a position to go out and, as they said in that initial press conference, we're not just shopping for staples. We've got to find, Sandy said, I've got to figure out where the gourmet section is, but we're going to be doing some shopping in it. We're just like, yes, this is so cool. But the fact that you have this guy who is a lifelong diehard fan that owns the team, in much the same way that it's cool to hear that, it's amazing to hear that the guy who's doing the PA announcing during it is a genuine fan, because like you love the team, you care about the team, you have an unreasonable level of emotional connection to the team, and every time you hear something like that, it gives you that much more Mets warm and fuzzies.
Well, if you go onto my Twitter, the one thing I have pinned on my Cosell PA Twitter feed is, I believe it was August 10th. It was a series against the Washington Nationals. The night before, Michael Conforto had a walk-off, and that's when they started tearing jerseys off of people in 2019. And the next night, it was a nail-biter. We were down. We came back, held on to the lead. Seth Lugo got the save, and I just had the wherewithal to start my camera on my phone because I knew I wasn't going to be announcing anything until the game totals afterwards. So I've got plenty of time, and it had a playoff vibe to it, and the place erupts, and the hair on the back of my neck is standing up right now, even talking about it. But I at one point turned the camera around and just kind of lose my marbles, and I'm watching screaming.
It now. Thank you for making August feel like October. It's amazing. If you don't already follow Colin on Twitter, you should, at Cosell PA.
Yeah, there's occasional inane dad jokes, and then some inside looks at what we do. I think the inside look at what we do is far more entertaining than my terrible jokes. But yeah, no, give it a follow, and I'll try to entertain you as best I can, and try to lift the curtain on what's going on inside that booth.
Ah, so cool. Ray, I believe you had some questions for Colin.
Well, originally, Adrian and I were talking back and forth about obviously things that are going on now, especially obviously with Steve Cohen. It's fantastic as a Mets fan, as Adrian just was saying, to have a passionate fan, one of us per se, like being the owner of the team is something amazing. But with the Mets, there's such a, we wear it on our sleeves so much. There's such a balance right now going on in the development of a 40-man roster and the 24-man roster. And we were actually talking and wanted to get your kind of insight on what you thought maybe about, the way that players are looked at right now in terms of their durability and need for them to be going. The Mets, obviously, in the last couple of years, we've suffered from maybe more levels of injury and just, our entire starting rotation practically being wiped out, things like that. We were both talking about Cookie, about our new pitcher, and the fact that there's been a lot of consternation about the fact that his elbow, his elbow's bothering him. It's spring training, and people are concerned and worried about the fact that that maybe he's not ready for opening day. And I wanted to see your perspective on it in terms of are we leaning a little too heavy on players, particularly pitchers, at say this time to be, literally mid-season form, or as Met fans, are we just that cautious Met fan who's always constantly feeling that the carpet's about to be pulled out from under us and our entire pitching staff is going to go out with with a horrible injury of some kind?
I mean, I think it's definitely the latter because, when your team hasn't won a championship in 34 years, that's taxing. When I grew up as a Rangers fan and the Rangers hadn't won a Stanley Cup in 54 years, well, I was not cognizant of 38 years of that, so I really didn't feel the pain, but I still felt the pain. So, you feel snake bitten. You feel like the rug is always going to be pulled. You feel like the other shoe's going to drop and somehow everything is going to go wrong. And I feel that, with certain teams, Mets very much included, you'll feel that way even right down to the, when they do win a World Series. And I am confident that Steve Cohen is going to deliver a World Series to the New York Mets because he's a fan. Oh
my God, I just got goosebumps.
I have no doubt in my mind.
For the organization, I was like, I would go on. Wow.
No, I mean, because look at this is a man that wants it as a fan. He is the wealthiest owner in Major League Baseball, even after the GameStop debacle. He's still the wealthiest owner in Major League Baseball. He's a fan first, and Sandy is an extraordinarily bright baseball mind. I think they've got all the right pieces in place, and I think they know what they're doing. They've got a direction that they're going to go with this. And you mentioned pitching, but listen, the centerpiece for this team in the offseason was Francisco Lindor. And that is just a huge pickup. I mean, in the process, saying goodbye to Ahmed Rosario is tough because, he was a great personality and I think he's got a very bright future. But this is a top 10 player in baseball right now. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, Stroman did not necessarily want to be a member of the Mets when he was traded. The fact that, he opted out in the pandemic shortened season last season and everything, but then wanted to re-sign with the team speaks volumes. The man, the Yankees are not on his radar. He wants to be a New York Met. DeGrom is hitting 3 digits in spring training for fun. That's insane. The dude is in prime form. I think what they are building and the way they're doing it, bringing on some passionate players, some really good leaders. I think the direction they're going in, I think right now for what they've got, Trevor Bauer, I'm glad we didn't get him. We don't need that kind of weirdness in the locker room. Pitchers are weird people. I can relate as a goalie. They're just weirdos. Goalies are weirdos. We don't need too much weirdness. We need some levity and brevity in there. So I think what they've done, they can assess where the team is at by the All-Star break. And the NL East is going to be, if not the toughest, one of the toughest divisions in all of Major League Baseball this year.
Which is fascinating because it's never been a division where more than, say, 90 wins. 90 wins has been practically the threshold to take the NL East for the longest time. It hasn't been a division that necessarily has been the hardest to win. Just the teams that we play against have never really. I mean, other than the standouts or obviously the 86 team, won 108 games and et cetera, it's always been the kind of division where if you can win in mid-90s, 93, 94 games, you're right there where Atlanta's been right now or where the Phillies when they were particularly good. Right now, all 5 teams in this division, look like they're going to be battling for a division title and obviously a wild card in the NL. And that to me is for a team that has barely broken 500 consistently, which has been a bugaboo for us for the longest time, to be talking about a team now where finishing under 500 is not acceptable. Battling for the division every year is where we're going to be. Is fantastic as a Met fan.
I mean, the NL East is going to be brutal because it's like it's so much talent, it's so much ability, it's so much and everyone for the most part is in it to win it. And it's going to be it'll be heartbreaking if we don't do as well as we think we're going to do. But at the same time, you just know we're set up for a season of really great competitive, edge of your seat baseball. At least that's the way it feels to me.
Well, you take a look at what the Nationals did in 2019. I mean, I did not, by any stretch of the imagination, peg them as a World Series champion, but they took some bumps and bruises. Look, we went 12-7 or 13-9 or something against them in the regular season. We beat the world champions, pretty handily for regular season, and they went on to win it all. And when you're playing in a division that tough, it's going to toughen your skin. And that's the type of tenacity that you are able to take into the postseason, and then you get hot and there's no stopping you. Listen, you look at the Braves, the Nats, and the Phillies. They've and the Mets. We've all got future Hall of Famers centerpieces. There's Harper, there's Soto. It goes on. And the Marlins proved last year that they're going in the right direction. Now they should end up in the bottom, but who knows? As John Sterling famously says, that's just baseball.
Well, I mean, Tom Petty and baseball remind us that even the losers get lucky sometimes. There will be times where the team in last place upsets the apple cart and beats the team in first place. There's going to be times where people have, if we're not in it to go all the way, we're here to mess up your postseason. We just got hot at the exact wrong time, but we're still going to screw you over. It's so great and so competitive what we're set up for now.
That leads to the next thing that I was thinking was in terms of the depth that Sandy and Zach, et cetera, that have been building, which I think that's our best shining moment right now in terms that we're building a very, very strong 26-man and 40-man depth of roster. And right now, there's a bit of going back and forth about who should be qualifying or making, say the starting team. And there's a player. I mean, he made an obvious case for himself today. Guillorme made a very very obvious case.
Let's talk about that. I can't believe it took us this long to get to cool hand Guillorme, who, whether it's a bat flying at his teammate's head or a 22 pitch at bat, seems unflappable. Besides the fact that it was record breaking stuff that happened today. I just can't believe how cool, calm, and collected he seemed through the whole thing. But go on.
Well, my point is, if we're building a team of depth, so that not only our starting players, our bench, our 40-man, our taxi cab, team to rely upon, a guy like Guillorme is, as well as he's doing right now. And there's a lot of people who want him in a starting role. They want him literally starting at third base over say J.D. Davis. Is his position, or what he does, is he better suited, no matter how good he's doing, to be on the bench and substituting in here or there? Are we better off with him doing that than necessarily starting every day, in comparison to, say, a relief pitcher who may want to start and get in, say, 30 starts in a year, but if he's a reliever and a good reliever, he's going to be in 70 or 75 games and making a real effort in 75 of our games. What role do people fill better in terms of what they can and should do? And that was another question that I was thinking of in terms of, an example would be Guillorme. Should he be a starter, or should we keep him on the bench and keep him, another arrow in our quill, or another bullet in our pocket?
I'm not in the business, unless I'm playing, Stratomatic baseball, in the business of managing. But I will say this. I think there is something truly great about having competition within your locker room. That makes everyone better. And when you've got, with bringing in, McCann at the plate, shoring up our pitching, obviously, and shortstop. That takes some of the pressure off of, say, Pete Alonso or Jeff McNeil, both of whom struggled a bit last season, still came away with pretty good numbers. When it comes to Guillorme, look, the man is hungry. I love J.D. Davis. I love his energy. The dude used to be quiet, calm, collected, reserved, and then he came to this team and turned into like the human equivalent of a Muppet. Like, there's no one better to watch celebrate than J.D. Davis. I love it.
Like him and Dom, like
Dom Smith is all heart.
Dude,
I mean,
watching
what an
that guy,
awesome
like cheer his teammates on in a scooter. Like, was it like when his knee was when his leg was jacked up? It was just seeing him like charge around the field was amazing. Here's the thing: you think
when he returned in 2019? I'm starting to cut you off, but when he returned in 2019 for the final game against the Braves and hit a walk-off home run in game 162 at Citi Field, and I was just there. Marisol was calling the game. I was just there as a fan. I was actually hanging out with a friend in like the upper deck in the outfield. And when Dom came to bat, and I was just like, I'm going to have to watch this because I have a feeling about this. And then the celebration that ensued, you would have thought we just clinched a playoff spot then and there. He's an all-heart guy. Guillorme is the same sort of player, and he is working his tail off just the same way Pete Alonso did. Pete wasn't supposed to be on the team in 2019. He busted his tail to get to where he's at. So, listen, if these guys are going to be able to make each other better, and they've had the kind of the luxury, I suppose, of being put into different places and fitting into different positions, that kind of versatility works so well because injuries are going to happen. And, eventually trades are going to happen. And if you're able to even elevate your trade value, there's something amazing about that as well. So, I mean, listen, I love Luis. I want him to be on this team. I'd love to see him as a starter. But I also know that we live in an era where giving players rest is commonplace in every single league except for the NFL and the NHL. NBA and Major League Baseball, that is paramount to a player's success. So I think it's a great thing. I'd love to see him as a starter. I know he's going to play a pivotal role in this team, and I think all of his hard work is paying off. I would just love for him to shave that beard because I'm always convinced he's 35 years old, and he's not. He's like the dude has barely been of legal drinking age for a few years, and it just kind of baffles me because I'm like, Dad?
It's so funny you should say that because he does. He looks like, old man Mountain with a beard. And then also he is so cool under pressure. He comes across like a player that's been doing it a lot longer than he has. And then the other thing about him, and it's almost unfair to a player like Guillorme, who I'm sure ideally would like to be an everyday something. But I look at a player and I don't know. I know nothing. I am completely unathletic. I'm a fan and I don't ever want to speak out of turn with this stuff. But for me, from the outside looking in, I look at a player like J.D. Davis and I look at a player like Dom Smith and I say those guys need to be stuck in the same place so they can get used to doing what they're doing. They need consistency. I have full confidence, again, knowing nothing, but I have full confidence in J.D. Davis to be awesome at third base, but I feel like you got to stick him there for long enough to give him a chance to get good. I feel like Dom could be amazing in left field. I feel like his confidence grows every time I see him there. I feel like they need that consistency, but I feel like Guillorme is so adaptable and he's so cool under pressure. Like, again, whether he's catching a bat or whether he's doing a 22 pitch at bat, I just feel he's so calm and collected that he's so valuable as this utility player that you can stick anywhere and depend on him to do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Because look, Jeff is going to need rest. He's going to need slumps. And this is just his second base alone. And then you've got Jonathan Villar, who's there, as a possibility. Guillorme has proven that he can kind of plug into any position. And he is so calm, cool, and collected. And he is so versatile. And I think that is going to work to their advantage. And, listen, this may be a hot take, but I think one of the best things that could have happened to the Mets was Robbie Cano getting a PED suspension for this season.
We had the same conversation. We're like, hey, how do you get popped for the same thing that Canadian sprinter got popped for in the 80s? What was it? Who was it? It was the same drug. Go on. Sorry, I interrupted and didn't know what the hell I was talking about. That was rude of me.
Not at all. I literally, my fingers were like at the ready to start clickety clacking on Google and be like, my God, who was it? But listen, it gives these, I guess they're young veterans is the best way to call them, a real shot here. And it's going to be a bit of plug and play and see what works. But, that versatility and the depth that they've added in pitching, I think is going to bode well for the team as a whole. And it's going to give opportunities for Guillorme, who has really proven his worth to this team, much like Dom Smith has, not just as a player, but as a presence in the locker room and in the dugout. It's going to give him a real chance. And I was talking with my spotter, who's become a dear friend of mine, my friend Nick, and he has an eye for the game that I just don't have. So he's able to fill in the blanks if there's a substitution going on while I'm reading copy. He's there to back me up. And he was like, I have not been this excited about a Mets roster in quite some time. And I think, the upside, the potential for this team is fantastic. And to be in a division this tough and to have this much talent on one team can only make them better. I think Luis Rojas is the right man, behind the bench right now, because he's been there. He's been a player. He's still young. He's relatable. He's enjoyable. The players really enjoy him. I think the potential ingredients are there to build something truly great, if not this season, in the very, very near future. So, it's going to be a wait and see sort of thing. I can't speak for the manager, but I'm really excited to see whatever it is they do. I will not, pull a typical Mets fan and be like, oh, come on, really? I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to trust the system because we've got the pieces in place to make something work.
I'm anticipating the moment that Lindor becomes a Met. There's the history of our team and in the history of all teams. The guy that comes from a different team or hasn't come up through the system, but now is on a team. There's that moment. There's that one play that happens. There's a brushback throw that he defends his teammate on. There's something that happens, and I'm waiting for the moment that everyone just kind of looks at each other. That Lindor has now become a Met, become a lifelong Met, and that's what I'm really anticipating, because I think he's going to be literally the anchor of everything that happens this year.
I mean, his personality. I mean, look, he's Mr. Smile. Like, I mean, how could you possibly go wrong with that? There's going to be that baptismal moment where it's like, you are now a part of the Holy Church of the New York Mets. Welcome. Right. Like we will. Very
good way. That's an amazing way of describing it. That baptismal moment. Oh,
because that's such an important, especially in New York, especially in a major market, but one where like all eyes are on you and they will turn on you in the drop of a hat in New York City. Like, they don't care that you're batting 360. If you get a golden sombrero in one game, they're going to boo you. And they don't care what your average is. So that baptismal moment is truly paramount to your success in New York.
Yeah,
totally. It's Alfonso's six hits in a game. It's Ventura's grand single. It's Todd Pratt hitting that that game winning home run. There's something that happens where you're now a Met. It's a West Side Story moment. Once you're a Met for life kind of like thing. Like you're not and like a Wilmer Flores crying that he thinks he's been traded. There's that moment where you are now a Met and you're not going anywhere, kid, no matter what happens.
100%. And actually, at that very game, when I learned about the prospective job, Wilmer Flores hit a walk-off to defeat the Brewers on that fateful Sunday afternoon, April 15th.
That's right.
It's amazing. So, all right. So there's two more things. We're getting short on time here, but there's two things I want to cover before we finish up. Do you think, speaking of Lindor, do you think that he is locked up before the season starts?
I don't think they're going to rush it. I think right now it's kind of tentative. I think they're just kind of feeling each other out. And I don't think they're going to rush it because there's no need to. I think right now all eyes are on the prize. I don't think they want to get caught up in money. That can be such a distraction. And, understanding, of course, that baseball is a business and so on and so forth. The fact of the matter is, he wants to win. He wants to make an impact on this team. He wants to be on the back page of the Post, the News, Newsday, and featured in SportsCenter Top 10. Like his objective, I think, right now is not money. I think it's success with this team, and I think Alderson, understands that. Sandy is. It's going to be before the end of the season, 100%. But I don't think it's something they're going to rush, and I don't think they need to. And I think they feel that.
Well, that blows what you and I were saying out of the water, Ray. But like Ray and I were just like, oh, they got to do it before the beginning of the season. He said,
I could be
in that
totally
first
wrong.
He said in that very first press conference where he was just like, he was like, they got to get to know me. I got to get to know them. Like I'm so happy to be here, and this is going to be great. But, we got to get to know each other before we start talking about that stuff. And they're like, well, what about later? He was like, I have never once in my career talked money during the season. And he said, I'm not. It seemed like he was saying, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm going to focus on baseball during the season, and we either lock it up before or after, but not during.
There's a reason why I think. I apologize.
No, go ahead, because I'm just going to say I am far from an expert. That's just kind of the feeling that I get about the situation. I understand what he said, but I also take a lot of what athletes say with kind of a grain of salt, because, look, how many marriages can you think of that had prenups are either happy or ended well? You do have to have that feeling out period. You do need to get to know each other. They want to see that product in the field. He wants to perform and justify his worth. So listen, if it ends up being after this season, then so be it. But the conversation is going to predominantly be between Sandy and Francisco's agent, and to not be too much of a distraction. Obviously, listen, Lindor's. His focus is where it should be, where you want it to be as a fan or as an owner or as a manager or as a teammate. And so I cannot do anything but respect the hell out of that.
No, we agree. Go on.
Well, I was going to say I have a feeling, and it's more based on looking at the business aspect of the game, the advertising aspect of the game. All these other things that exist. In my mind, the Mets are entering into a rebranding of basically their entire market, based on the fact that, with Steve coming in with a new personality, a new approach to things going on, and any business, any large corporation, et cetera, like that was going through a rebranding, is going to have to invest in that rebranding, whether it's advertising, whether it's a movie that's coming out for the Academy Awards, and they're now going on a major advertising push, just pushing for the Academy Award. I feel that the Mets are in a position that if they really want to show the rest of the league, we are here, there's a big change, there's everything, we're going for it. Not only what they've done in terms of flipping almost the entire 40-man roster, they flipped half the 40-man roster in developing this. So every team's on notice of like, wow, the Mets are really here and doing this. But I think the Lindor and locking Lindor down is something that they're actually going to wind up doing, because it's a financial and business benefit to them. It really does show we are here and we're serious. And so, yes, a $300 million contract is twice, in fact, it's a little bit more than twice, than the largest contract the Mets have ever given up. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that I feel that they're almost going to have to do that, because that's the price of admission of being in this market, showing that you're ready for it and showing that you're going to be there. And the details of that contract, the details of how it's set up, et cetera, like that. There's so many other examples right now of other teams locking up players, like the Fernando Tatis deal, the Machado deal, obviously in the same town, Garrett Cole, et cetera. The ridiculous contract that Castro has that Stanton has for the Yankees. These are all in existence, and the Mets are the Mets really are going to have to actually show that they're at that level. And that's why I kind of feel the Lindor thing, I think within a week or so, we're going to know that it's happened. I don't think it's going to be outrageously insane. I think it's going to be a reasonable contract to the time period that we're in and the market that we're in. And it's going to show everybody we are here and we're in it. And the same goes for Conforto. Same goes for, I think, conversations with Thor. I think they're going to really have to show this. And the reason I'm also saying this is if you look to the next 2 or 3 years of the free agent classes that are coming up and players that are becoming available, we are only going to benefit from locking up the players that we actually want to lock up at this time in their careers, because the 22, 23, 24, and 25 classes that are projected, along with the renegotiation of the CBA coming up, there's a huge amount of reasons for looking at it as a pragmatic business decision to say this makes a lot of sense to lock this up right now and lock in these costs and lock in these ideas. Like I said, it's just how I've been looking at it, passively on the sidelines, and of course not having skin in the game of having to pay it out myself.
Right? Yeah.
Sure. but the thing is, excuse me, the Mets made a splash and kind of placated Mets fans by doing what they did in the offseason, by getting Lindor in the first place, and bringing in Carrasco and re-signing Stroman. All of these things, have made have kind of settled the waters with Mets fans, which is not an easy task, because for my entire duration, it was like, yeah, you got to get Bryce Harper. You got to get this. You got to get that. Like, that's all I saw on Twitter, to the point where it was just exhausting. I'm like, listen, these guys know what they're doing. If they're able to get the contract out of the way before the season starts, more power to them. I think that's fantastic. I think that's what, Lindor, said in his press conference, either before or after the season, but not during. I think that would be brilliant. But when it comes to actually marketing your team and making it something sexy that people are going to want to buy season tickets or get, ticket packages to and what have you, we live in an era where you can have a 20-minute turnaround, quite literally. There was a prospective pitcher that we were going after in the beginning of January, and I recorded a voiceover welcoming the pitcher just in case we signed him, so that we were like ready to put it out there. And I was going to be announcing, now pitching for the Mets, number so-and-so, whatever. Like, it was going to be this whole thing.
At least you didn't accidentally put yours on the internet.
No. I would never, ever do that. I'm smarter than that. But you can literally, we could have signed Lindor on April 5th. And the Mets home opener is on the 8th, and we would have been able to get a cast over to a company and have a bobblehead ready for opening day if needed. Like, you can make these things happen at an exponential rate. So to keep, I think everyone knows the Mets mean business, that they are in it to win it, and they're going to do what it takes to put together the team necessary to win a World Series. If not now, then in the very short years to come. And a contract doesn't necessarily have to placate a rabid fan base that desperately wants to win. These small actions and then these ads and posters and things that are out there constantly remind people, especially as he starts, getting big hits and making big plays for the Mets, and you start putting that into ad campaigns, what have you. That's going to keep that excitement and that fervor and that belief. What's the Mets slogan other than amazins? You got to believe. And there's a reason to believe now. And I don't think a contract necessarily has to, to prove that point. But that, listen, the Mets fans, they need something on Twitter to talk about. And right now it is, lock up Lindor, lock up Conforto. There's always some sort of managerial aspect for Mets Twitterverse. And I love that. I respect it. They are so feverish and fervent about it. But I think there is a reason for them to be like, but you know what? I can actually trust the system now. I can trust what they're doing. And a contract doesn't necessarily need to be that exclamation point.
When we got Lindor, I saw something, Twitter weighed in obviously quickly and heavily when that happened. But I wish I knew who said it first so I could credit them. But the one thing that I saw when we got Lindor, and it speaks to both of your points, and when Ray talks about rebranding the team, someone said, "Did That So Mets just become good?" And I was just like, yes, it did. Yes, it did. That's So Mets. It's a good thing now.
That's so true.
I think back to maybe missed opportunities in the past as a Mets fan that I wouldn't want to see repeat. So, for instance, Vladimir Guerrero used to kill us all the time, and he became available. And we needed a right fielder in the worst way possible. And the fact that the Mets weren't even in the conversation to get him a Hall of Fame player that had just killed us for everything, and we watched him go on in the prime of his career somewhere else to now do it somewhere else. I as a lifelong Mets fan, I look back at the missed opportunities or things that I would say to myself, wow, had we done this or had we done that. I take Lindor at his word that he doesn't want to have this conversation during the season roll. So obviously there is a bit of a threshold or a time frame on it. And I do look at the fact that if it is true to his word that he doesn't want to negotiate that, and he does go say to be a free agent at the end of the season, but does want to come back to us, it's still going to cost a lot of money. It's gonna cost any team that wants to sign a Lindor or a Trevor Story or a Seager, etc. And this offseason also showed a lot of Mets fans that Steve Cohen is definitely, it's fantastic that he's the owner, but he doesn't snap his fingers and everybody wants to come here no matter what. So, the game that's played back and forth, I personally would love to see if it's possible for Lindor to be given the thumbs up of, listen, we like you, we like what you do, and we want to see you do it here for the next 10 years. I think is, as a Mets fan, to me, despite everything that they've done, and I know what they've done in this offseason, you're totally right. They've shown where they're at. I just think it would be such a cherry on top of saying this. We believe in you so much. The next 10, we want to see you here doing this next 10 years. I'm sure Dodger fans looking at Mookie Betts are saying the same thing, and I'm sure the Red Sox fans are looking at it going, really?
Isn't that fun, though? Isn't that fun as New York sports fans to watch Boston suffer in any way, shape, or form? I'm like, isn't that fun?
Go on. Please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, listen, if they do sign Conforto and Lindor and they get everything, all their ducks in a row before even the home opener on the 8th, I think it's going to be a wonderful thing for Mets fans. It's going to be icing on top of that big exclamation point shaped cake. But it's also, then the Mets Twitterverse is going to get really quiet. And I'm not sure they know how to handle that. I don't get involved at all. I just kind of sit back and watch, and I'm like, I think one time I acknowledged it. I was like, you guys can prognosticate all you want. I'm going to sit here and watch a Mets classic where I can hear my voice in the background because it was David Wright's last at bat, and they were all being like, we got to get this guy. And I'm like, guys, just let's watch some classics and have some fun, huh?
In the short term that I've been looking at or watching Twitter, which Adrian completely got me into, I wasn't even on it as of even 6 months ago. The one thing I have learned is that Mets fans can bitch and moan about things, whether it's a good or bad, whether they've been given what they wanted, or anything. I think the bitching and moaning sessions will continue no matter if every player was locked up to an infant, to the largest contract ever, and we know exactly what the team would be like for the next 10 years. I think there'd still be the
New York sports fans will never be happy. It's just the way it is in New York. We thrive on misery. It is a factory of misery. And then when we win it all, it's like, this is great, but what about next year? Can we do this again? And it's just like, dude, my God, the confetti hasn't even landed yet. Jeez, stop.
You know what's interesting? I got on, I told Ray to get on Twitter because I was like, you don't understand. If you're an out-of-market sports fan, the way the two of us are, it's the closest I've felt to I'm at a game. You really feel like you're enjoying it with people or suffering through it with people. And it to me as an out of market fan, to live tweet along with a game is it's the best. And I know, like, I have this thing, like, same with baseball, where I don't want to get too close to it. I don't want to see how the baseball sausage is made. I want to remain a fan. I want it to be special and magical and all of those things. At the same time, like, baseball is my one escape. It's like all I've got, like that's it, like, and I never want it to be a thing where I bitch and moan about anything. So we don't get them today. Maybe we'll get them tomorrow, but I love the Mets and I love them when they win. I love them when they lose. I just love the Mets. I can't do anything about it. It's not something that you choose. It was thrust upon you. So I do whatever I can. I never say anything negative on Twitter about the Mets. And I notice now I've got more and more people following me saying, thank you for being a positive Mets fan. I was like, no problem. But I've noticed I've attracted a little subsect of followers that follow me because I do not bitch and moan about the Mets online.
It's so funny because, I personally, it's also in the best interest of my job not to complain about the Mets at all. But I also have to trust the system. I try to be as positive as possible. And if things are going wrong, I just avoid Twitter altogether. Like, I'll read it. And I'll avoid what I'm going to like something or not. But again, it's, New York sports fans are always going to find something to complain about. It's the New York way. And I've just, I've come to embrace it. I'm just like, all right, it's okay. When it all calms down, if I see you in the hallway or at the Jackie Robinson Rotunda, I'll just give you a little hug and just, pat on the shoulder and be like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry.
Well, we have to finish up. But one thing that Mets fans have, and I want to end on this. One thing that Mets fans have absolutely no reason to complain about ever is their PA announcer and what he did for people during the offseason. I read about this, how you were yes. out of the goodness of your own heart, not, primarily, I think, with healthcare workers, you were recording bits of audio for people with their chosen walk-up music, like they were coming to the plate and announcing them. Talk about that, because that was an incredible thing that you did for people. Handing a kid a bit of paper that you wrote your notes on during the game, and that to me are in the same category. It's something that it doesn't take a lot from you, but it means everything to the people that have it happen for them. And then it did take a lot from you, because I read that you did like 700 of them for people in the last year or something close to that. Go on, tell us.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Well, it was a year ago today being the recording date of March 14th, that, everything got shut down, and baseball had already been shut down. And so I had zero to look forward to, because I'm a one-trick pony. I talk into a microphone for a living. I have little odd jobs here and there, but I'm basically just a freelancer. So I had the rug pulled out for me as well. And I had originally in 2018 did a little thing called hashtag Call Me Up Colin. And it was in December of 2018, right after I completed my first season. And of course, there were growing pains, because replacing Alex Anthony is no easy task. The man had been there for 17 years. Mm-hmm. And fans were a little up in arms about it. And I wanted to let them know that, A, I'm proud to be their announcer. B, I wanted them to get familiar with my voice. And C, I wanted to let them know that this is not just a job of me, barking at them through a microphone. This is a job I want to share with them. Mm. And so I just put it out there and got, nominal response. I was going to pick 10 of them and just, it could be a free Christmas gift or Hanukkah gift or what have you. And like 92 or 3 people ended up reaching out. And so after the holidays had passed, I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do the rest of them. So I did 93 of them. So when the lockdown orders came in, I was like, I'm going to resurrect this, because the fans want to be in the ballpark. I want to be in the booth. And so the one thing I can do to bring the ballpark home to them and to make it feel like I'm in the booth again is resurrect Call Me Up Colin. So I would put it out there on Twitter, tweet at me with your name, your jersey number, the position you'd play, and your walk-up song, and I will record and produce it in the same fashion that I do at the ballpark. And a bunch of people were like, this is cool. There's like 100 that came in, and then a local radio station picked up on it. They did a story, and then more and more trickled in. And then Marisol, who works for a TV station here, Pix 11, she'd known about it, but they were trying to find, bits of good news, things that were positive amidst all this death and confusion and craziness going on with COVID-19. And so she had me on her show. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. It started getting national coverage. CNN, Fox News, NBC Universal started doing that. So that was international coverage. And then an AP article by Ben Walker came out, and that went international. And suddenly I was just getting bombarded. I mean, it was a tsunami and an avalanche all wrapped into one. Mm-hmm. And actually, when all was said and done, when I finally finished them all, I called it off the beginning of May because there was just too many. When it was all said and done, I finally finished them by the first week of June. I had done 1,200 of them.
That's insane.
It was pretty wild.
And I want people to know, as a fellow broadcaster that spends time, like, it's 30 seconds of audio or however long it is. It's, it seems like, takes 30 seconds. It does not. It takes a lot of time. It's difficult to put it together, to get it to render, to like find the music, to line it all up. I'm assuming you're doing all this on your own, and and so it's like that is a Herculean effort for the common good, and it's just a beautiful way that you had of helping people through a difficult situation. I think we end by way to go, Colin Cosell. Thank you so much for doing everything that you've done.
Come on. That's too kind. Normally the applause is for the team. This is such a nice role reversal. I appreciate it. No, man, it was so gratifying, and like I ended up shifting gears and started turning the focus more towards the frontline workers, medical responders, nurses, everyone that was really stuck in the thick of it, especially when New York City was at the epicenter, and then teachers as well, and students and athletes that had their school years and their sports seasons and what have you ripped away from them. I made them the focus, and the response I got from people was like, I mean, I'm an easy crier to begin with, but like there were so many that came in, I'd be like, honey, you got to hear this. And I play something for my wife, and we both sit there crying. She's like, you're doing such a great thing. And I'm like, that's not why I'm like, but this is, and I was speechless, so it was really awesome. So thank you very much. I appreciate the round of applause, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. And, and when the season did return, I didn't need any warm up at all. Like I was ready to get right back in that booth. Like I was primed and ready. So I owe a debt of gratitude to all 1,200 of those people that asked for a call up.
You know what that was, Ray?
What was that?
That was the moment that Colin became a Met.
Yeah, that was his baptism.
I did it.